Hello everyone, I'm Carnes, and this is Living Consciously. You know, growing up in Southern California, 6 miles from Hollywood, it was kind of inevitable that my parents had friends in the movie business, and they did. And one of them was an editor, and I was always fascinated by the stories he would tell us about how he kind of had the final say about what the movie would look like, along with the director, when they got into the editing room, because they would take a film strip of the movie that had been filmed, and they would actually cut whole scenes out or moments out and then splice it back together. And what they were editing was that which did not move the story forward. You know, sometimes they cut out the actor's favorite scenes, but the actor had nothing to say about it. It was all about the editor. I suppose today, with all the digital movies made, that they do it on computer, but film is coming back in favor the way vinyl records are. But in any case, editing is a really good analogy to how you and I have to work with and use our mind to move our story forward. We have to edit out things that simply do not belong with us anymore. Old ideas, long-held beliefs, anything that needs to be removed can be with the right use of mind. And sometimes it seems like this is really hard to do, but it isn't. First of all, we have to remember, we are the editor-in-chief. Nobody else, think about this, nobody else can actually make you think anything you don't allow in. You don't accept or don't challenge, you just let it flow through. No one can make you angry and no one can make you happy. That this is simply true. All right, so it's good to know that you have the power to add or remove that which belongs with you or doesn't. Secondly, beliefs aren't set in concrete. You know, I talk to people so often who think it's hard to get rid of an old belief because it's down there in my subconscious. I'm going to give you a visual. Here's our being. This vast space is who you really are, and the tip of the iceberg are your beliefs. And I mean, it's a very thin veil. It's an illusion. It's not permanent. Nothing you believe is permanent, and it can all be altered or removed. So I'm saying that because I want people to really understand this is not hard to do, but it does take focus. It takes intention, and as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, you keep a promise to yourself that you will stay current in your thinking and not be led around like an animal with a ring in its nose by past ideas that no longer belong with you. Now, we ask ourselves, if I'm going to remove something, what would take its place? Something has to take its place. So it would be the very opposite. For example, if you've been living with lack and struggle, and you decide to change that belief, it must become something like, I am a prosperous being. I always have everything I need, when I need it, to spare and to share. Or I have enough of everything all the time. You know, I am a prosperous being, living a prosperous life. These are ideas, that become beliefs. And they belong in a story that is about living prosperously. Do you understand? It makes sense, doesn't it? So you must remove any old ideas, edit them out, cut them out. You can even imagine them on a film strip and snip, snip, right? They don't belong with you anymore. A great book, Nothing is Too Good to Be True by John Randolph Price. He said, we are the allness of God in unique expression. And in the individualization process, meaning when spirit became you, nothing was left out. That's really important to know. You're whole. You are an open at the top potential. You have everything you could possibly ever need to live a great life. Nothing was left out. It's all potential. It's all right where we are. So right at this moment, regardless of circumstances, everything we could ever desire is already a part of our being. It's a part of the makeup of being human. and it's ready to come through us into manifestation. You see, we actually exist outside of time. I wrote something this morning, which I think I'll share in the next program, but it's about how we're really visitors here. We're visitors from the spiritual realm, taking a physical form temporarily in order to enjoy the fruits of time-space dimension. It's kind of fun. It's also can be limiting, and to a being that knows that it is from the spiritual realm, those limitations can be transcended by the right use of mind. So we actually exist outside of time. We experience it, but it doesn't control us. Now, the reason I'm talking about time in today's talk is because the past impinges on the present if we don't edit it out. And when I say edit out, people say, well, how can you get rid of the past? It actually happened. What I mean is we edit out our reaction to what happened, the sense that we were victimized, or anything that limits us, that does not move our story forward, needs to be cut out. We reframe the experience. You know, I'm sure you've heard of that. It's a wonderful psychological technique. You reframe what happened so that you now see it in a larger context. And for example, if you were, let's say, mistreated as a child, and it caused you to feel like you're a victim of life, that victimization consciousness will go with you into everything you do, into your relationships, into your work life, into your emotions, and you'll act on them. You'll act like a victim, and they aren't very pleasant to be around. Seriously. Because we tend to be defending, or we are attacking, or we're sarcastic, all those things that protect us in our mind. So we want to reframe it. And we want to see that what we thought was a limitation from childhood actually has served us in some way. And I'll tell you a great example is Winston Churchill. I just saw that movie, The Darkest Hour. It was an excellent movie, about the rise of Winston Churchill in the time of King George II, I think, during World War II, at the beginning of World War II. Now, I don't know if you know this about Churchill, but he suffered from a serious speech impediment as a child. Oddly enough, so did King George. Isn't that interesting? That they both became the voices of victory for Britain during the war. And it was only audio. There was no TV. There was no internet. It was all on the radio. People would crowd around their radio to listen to these men lead them into a sense that we can be victorious, when there were a lot of voices in Britain that wanted to negotiate with Hitler, who Winston Churchill considered a monster. And he was adamant. He had a conviction. We are not negotiating for peace with him. Belgium has already fallen. Poland has fallen. France is falling. Italy's gone. Japan is aligned with Germany. There's no negotiation here. And here's that little isle of England, you know, the little British Isles, that stood up to this giant war machine. Because of Winston Churchill, because of his conviction that he developed in himself by overcoming a childhood serious problem. It caused him to feel pretty bad about himself over the years, and he overcame it, okay? He reframed it. And that's something that you can do and I can do as well. There are lots of people that are venerated heroes to us that did exactly that. They launched themselves by transforming limited beginnings by editing their view of who they were. Nelson Mandela was one. I was in Cape Town, South Africa once, and we went to Robben Island where and we looked in his cell. It wasn't very big. It's not as big as my walk-in closet, where he lived for 27 years. I could not have done it. And then he came out and became president of South Africa. Mahatma Gandhi, humble beginnings, who I think he was thrown off a train once in Africa because he was an Indian, liberated his country from British rule. Helen Keller, she couldn't see and she couldn't hear, and yet she wrote books and was often quoted, and she was the one that said, life is either a great adventure or it's nothing at all. Now, these are dramatic examples, but we need them because our lives aren't nearly that limited or troublesome. And we can make deep changes that allow us to live up to our potential for greater happiness, health, wealth, joy, peace, creative self-expression. Okay? So these are dramatic examples of people not being defined by the past, because in your mind, you exist outside of time and it's always now, and now is when the editing process goes on. Right? So another way to see how important it is to become the editor in your life is to realize that today is going to become our past. Yeah. So you want to edit in the moment. You know, cancel, erase when a negative limiting thought comes in. Or when you notice yourself reacting to the world as a victim, you get to stop that right there and edit it out. Just cut it out. I am the master of my own experience. And you have to talk to yourself this way. It's pretty easy in the time-space dimension to be convinced that you don't have any power. And powerlessness is the source of all the violence on the planet, all the greed, all the crime, all the terrorism. It all comes from a sense of being powerless. All right, so that's what we want to edit out of our consciousness on every single level. So we need to be editing every single day. And it might be a good practice at the end of the day that you go through kind of a self-inventory of what you've been thinking about. And you might have acted on some of your ideas that you would have preferred not to. You need to address them and say, you do not belong in my story. You see, as if you are the editor and that is a project, your life is a project, like a movie, and you don't like that scene. It doesn't belong with you where you're going, where you want to go, your higher desires and possibility. So you say, no, that doesn't belong. I'm not repeating that. I'm taking that out of my consciousness as an appropriate way to respond to life. Actually, there's two ways. It's like we're either reacting or we're responding. We react from outer stimuli, and we respond from the inner whole self. So we want to learn to respond to life from here. And that means editing the superficial thoughts that are a reaction to what we see out there. You know, and the older I get, the more I realize what a waste of time it is to react to the outer world, because it's just story. It's all just a big, epic film. Truthfully. And you're the editor. You're the editor in chief. So ask yourself then, if that doesn't belong with me, what does? What does belong with me? And that's where, as I was talking about at the beginning, you make up something extremely positive and affirming that is the opposite of the limited idea. For example, if you've been struggling with your health and you started thinking of yourself as a sickly person or a person who's has no power over this dis-ease, we want to turn that around and say, regardless of how it has been up until now, my body is an energetic system of pure intelligence. It is God expressing, and it knows how to be whole and healthy. And I allow myself to feel the vitality of my spirit right here and right now as my perfect health. Because so often our health, or lack of it, is a way we manage stress. And, it's like a kid who gets a stomachache before the school test. We're very good at this sort of thing, and it's all unconscious, of course. But we want to clean up any sense that it is serving us to be unhealthy or poor or unhappy. Okay, so we're coming up on our break, and we have some wonderful sponsors that you should take a listen to. And come on back, I got more to share with you.
This is a national healthcare alert from the Health Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee pain and have Medicare as your primary insurance, we've got great news. You could qualify for a pain-relieving knee brace at little or no cost to you. Get free delivery, and all the paperwork is handled by our accredited suppliers at no charge to you. We also have other pain-relieving braces available for shoulder, ankle, and your back. Call the number on your screen right now to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call Low Cost Airlines. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call now.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business. According to the Secret War, banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get the Secret War free. Call the number on your screen or visit online.
Hi everyone, I'm Carol Carnes and we're back. And today we're speaking about the process of editing our mind the same way an editor would cut and splice a film to make it better, to move the story forward. We want to see our life as our personal project. And this is key. This is a big shift in most people's thinking, but here it is. Life doesn't happen to us. It happens through us. And we have everything to say about what we're experiencing and how we're experiencing it. So much of our life that is troublesome comes from the limiting ideas we have about ourselves, about the universe and how it works, about what's possible. And we start allowing ourselves to be convinced that the outer world dictates the experience we have. It does not. All right, so we said, and I'm going to repeat something I said in the first part. When spirit became you, nothing was left out. That all of it is there. And that means the infinite potential of the great beingness that we call I am. And it has been individualized as each one of us. And meaning we have an unlimited capacity for joy and love and peace and prosperity and vitality and all of those qualities that become the desirable human experiences that we all want. And that we exist outside of time, we manage it, it doesn't control us. And so what we're doing is cutting out any notions that we are anything less than spiritual beings in this human experience with a mind that is co-creative with universal intelligence. All right, so as I said earlier, today will be our past very quickly. So we want to make it obvious to ourselves that what we need to do is edit it every single day by saying to those little beliefs, those limiting beliefs, you don't belong in the story. You know, ask yourself, is my life a romantic comedy? Is it a thriller? High drama, an adventure story, a cartoon is, it's just a cute little way of seeing that we're actually writing a story. And we're editing it as we go along if we're paying attention. So it's important that we take some inventory every day and say, the experiences I had today reflect what beliefs that I have, and is it time for some of them to be jettisoned? And it probably is. Another thing that limits some people from accepting their greater good, because it's kind of a big promise that modern spirituality is making to us. It's saying nothing's too good to be true, people. But one of the things that people come up against is an old belief, which needs to be edited out, that experiencing greater good for ourselves is somehow selfish or taking from someone else, which is patently untrue. There's enough of everything for everybody because everything comes out of consciousness. Everything comes out of mind. It's not a limited experience of any kind. Nothing is. It's all part of infinite potential. All right? So now, but here's what I wanted to share with you. This came from John Randolph Price's book, Nothing's Too Good to Be True. Our desires for prosperity, vitality, love, peace, joy, and creative self-expression are not actually coming from our conscious mind. They're coming from spirit craving expression. I know that's a new idea for most of you. It was a new one for me when I heard it first a long time ago, and it hit me right between the eyes. That your desire to be happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise is not coming from your mind. It's coming from the universal mind. It's spirit, God, let's call it God, tapping you on the head, so to speak, nudging you to let it through. That's how it happens, through us, not to us. It's saying, let me be the happiness in your life. Let me experience joy as you. Let me experience prosperity as you. It's just a very different way of looking at life, isn't it? It takes a little getting used to realize that the whole thing happens from within. Nothing happens out there first. Nothing happens outside of us first. It all happens inside of us first. And we're all doing it collectively as well as individually. So universal mind has a craving to express by means of us. That's the reason we became visible. That's the reason we were, if you want to say it this way, downloaded from the spiritual realm into the physical. And we want to be careful when we feel the prompting or the nudge. We want to be careful we don't say, well, it has to look like this, or it has to look like that. What I'm finding as I get older is and I studied this for so many years, is that the secret is allowing. It's allowing universal mind to bring it about in the most intelligent way, and it knows how to do it because it is not involved in time and space. So it doesn't see limitation. You might say it sees around all the corners and right over the obstacles that we perceive. They aren't there to the universal mind or to the spirit that we are, to the greater self that the world sometimes calls God. Might as well, it's as good a name as any for it. So how we allow spirit to express by means of us is by responding. Remember we talked in the first part about the difference between reacting to outer stimuli and responding from in here. We respond to the intuitive ideas that come to us that feel like a prompting from a greater intelligence. You know what I'm talking about. It's not like trying to figure out how to do something. It's like suddenly knowing. It's a deep know. I know what to do. I know where to be, that kind of thing. You're led from within. You have to practice this. You have to practice responding to your intuition. And as you do, it becomes more active. And it's always accurate. And sometimes it feels like a little nudge, like you keep having an idea that you should do this, you should do that, and you don't do it. And then one day you do it and the whole thing is better, right? Your life gets suddenly lit up. It's responding to those nudges. It's like something's trying to come through us from the infinite field of potential into our individual life. And that's really happening all the time. That's what life is spirit craving its expression by means of us. Now, you notice that enlightened beings, the Jesus and the Buddhas and the Mohammeds and the great minds, and there's many more outside of religion, they always refer to themselves as a servant of the spirit, and they don't mean a slave. They mean a vehicle for spirit to be seen and known in this dimension. They all see that. There's an old song Michael and Ricky Beckwith wrote called Use Me. And it's a petition to God saying, use me, God. But really, what's really happening is God, if you will, is saying to us, use me. Do something with me. Let me out. So, we want to edit out these old religious ideas that have us as victims of anything, or learning lessons from some power, or being taught through punishment. No, none of that's happening. This is a creative universe. It's always in process, and it creates through that which it creates out of itself. That's you and that's me. All right? So we become a vehicle for the Spirit to express. And John Randolph Price said, we need to keep open to the inflow as well as the outflow. And the inflow are those intuitive ideas or the nudge to be happier. And the outflow of how we express that. See, if we agree that it's possible, then we find ways to express it, don't we? We do. First of all, you have to think it's real. Realization means to make something real. So if we realize that we are spiritual beings in a human experience with an infinite potential, we can make that real by how we use our mind. And, on your email, there's a little edit button. When you push it and it lets you delete everything. I sometimes just remove every message on it because most of them are ads that I don't want to read or things I'm not interested in. I just delete them right out. And if I didn't, my phone would be storing literally thousands of messages that have no use for me and nothing. They don't belong in my mind. Same thing. Your mind is just like that. Do not store up old ideas that don't carry your story forward. You are the editor-in-chief. That's my truth, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, come and see me on Sunday morning at 10:30 at the Messiah Community Center. You'll love it. You'll love the people who come. Small group. We're growing. We'd love to have you be one of us. And you can also get on our website, which is right behind me on the little sign there, Messiah Valley Center for Spiritual Living.org. You can donate via PayPal to us. We really would appreciate that very much. We are a nonprofit. And you can get on my website and buy my book. There's a link to it on the website, but also just get on lulu.com. My website is carolcarnes.com. All right. I think that's it for today. Do some editing and see if you don't open up some spaces in your mind for some real good news story ideas to come through. All right? Until we meet again, stay tuned in.